Well, greetings to each of you, and welcome back to the Shakedown, a podcast about corrections, for corrections, and by corrections. Good to have you back with us on yet another episode. I hope that you enjoyed the interview that we did with Grand County in Colorado, talking about their program, their jail-based behavioral services program they have there. Hope it was an encouragement to you that there are some folks that are making an effort to focus on the positive. Before we get into today's feature interview, I want to mention something that is very exciting news. NIJO is releasing a new course, Conflict Management Techniques. That course is written by Dr. Steve Sampson. If any of you ever been involved or attended any jail cons or NIJO training, you're familiar with Dr. Sampson. But he has written this course, and NIJO is releasing Conflict Management Techniques. It's a fantastic course. I had the opportunity to be a part of that and to pull that apart and see what it contains. And I will tell you, in all my years of experience dealing with whether it be de-escalation or crisis intervention or those type topics, you will find that the principles and practices that are put forth in conflict management techniques far surpasses that. So if that is something that you are interested in getting some more information on, I would highly recommend it. And the neat thing is it's practical not just for corrections or detention staff, but it's also applicable for your enforcement or patrol officers as well. So if you're interested in getting some more information of that, send an email to training@jailtraining.org. Again, that email is training@jailtraining.org, and make sure that you get some further information on that conflict management course. But now as to our episode, our interview today. Remember, our theme has been focusing on the positive. There's so much in the corrections environment that if we're looking for reinforcement of the negative, there is more than enough there to focus on and to make us feel that there isn't any hope for the human race, that there's nothing to work for, there's nothing to work toward, and we can become very, very cynical about the situation. But as we continue to feature these programs and interview these folks that are investing in the inmate populations in our facilities, I hope you get a sense that there is hope for the human race, that there is something to be positive about, that it doesn't have to be a cycle of failure, that we don't have to be cynical or despairing about the human race, that there is something positive to focus on. This week, we're going to interview the directors for the Neighborhood Christian Center, Mr. Tim Boulding and his wife, Miss Pam Boulding. Now, I will be honest with you, that this is I'm a little more biased on this one because these are two people in an organization that I have had a great deal of involvement with. They're hosted. The Neighborhood Christian Center is hosted in Decatur, Alabama, in the northern part of the state of Alabama. And they have invested in the agency and the facility that I served as warden of. So I know these folks very well and have seen firsthand their input. But one thing that you'll find as you talk to Mr. and Mrs. Boulding is that they are consumed with the mindset that there is hope, not just hope broad scale, not just hope for the human race, but hope for these individuals, these inmates, that they may have experienced a setback, they may have fallen again and again and again and again, but a statement that I have heard made by them and their staff multiple times is that as long as you're breathing, there's still hope. And so very pleased to be able to have them on the podcast and to be able to interview them. And I hope you will enjoy and be encouraged by what you hear them have to say. So, without further ado, let's get to that interview. All right. Well, greetings, everybody. As I said, good to be on location in Decatur, Alabama at the Neighborhood Christian Center. with Mr. Tim and Ms. Pam Boulding. As I mentioned earlier, obviously I'm a little more biased to this one, being I've had a lot more direct involvement with them, but years of ministry that has taken place here in Morgan County. But before we get into what goes on specifically at the Morgan County Jail, why don't y'all kind of give us an idea of what the Neighborhood Christian Center does? I know it's not just jail. So what all are y'all involved in besides just jail?
Okay. Well, the Neighborhood Christian Center is in its 29th year, so we'll be celebrating a big 30th year next year.
That's awesome.
And so when it first started, it was mainly a food pantry, clothes closet, helped a little with financial assistance, started a summer youth leadership program.
Okay.
And as time's gone, they wanted to do more than just be the food pantry, clothes closet, but offer programs that made a difference in helping people turn their lives around. So now, 29 years later, there's a lot of things that go on under the cover. We kind of call it a big umbrella with lots of spokes. And so, but to narrow it down in about 4 groups, we have emergency assistance, which provides food and clothing and household items, hygiene, financial assistance. We help with Christmas. We give out about close to 15,000 gifts and toys over a few days. Christmas toy store. We do Thanksgiving meals. So that falls under that emergency side, taking care of the tangible things. Our main thing, of course, we want to do is work with the community, those in need that are hurting and need hope and healing, and we want to do that through sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's grown out of probably fallen under education and discipleship. So that moves into those classes that we do. So we have about 40 plus programs going on weekly, which is a lot.
Yes.
And about 28 to 30 of those do involve like Morgan County Jail and a couple of prisons. And so we teach all kinds of classes there, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But we teach classes here at the Neighborhood Christian Center. We have Bible studies here. We have one-on-one mentoring. People come in and, you can't put somebody's problems or their issues on a timetable, so you have to be available. And so the court also sometimes orders people to come here to the center and take anger management, parenting, or different things like that. And under that educational discipleship too, we offer a backyard Bible club, and that kind of falls under children and youth programs in the Northwest, our lowest income area. Once a week we go into that neighborhood and do a little Bible club, spend time with the kids in the housing development area. And then the summer youth program I talked about, that's been going on for 29 years. And so we train young teens to be leaders in their community, kind of like urban missionaries. So they create dances and drama and different programs and go out and share that through the community with kids. But also while they're here, they're taking leadership classes as well, whether it's budgeting, relationships, life skill. This summer we're studying the Gospel of John. They take college tours, they go tour businesses. So they're just offered a lot of things to keep them on path, growing as leaders in a God-honoring way. And then we also work with high-risk teens. Once a week we meet with teens that a lot of them have already had a brush with the law.
Okay.
And then we have 3 transitional houses. So we have one house for women that houses up to 4 women. And a lot of those are the women maybe we've met in jail. And touch their lives there. And they know when they get out they don't need to go back home or their situation. And sometimes they're court ordered by the judges. And then we have a second house. And right now it's a young man that was at Morgan County Jail, been in and out. And this time we hope he stays out.
Right.
And so he's living in it right now. But sometimes it's been where it may be a woman that's been in the transitional home that she knows even after she's finished that program, she still needs kind of a thumb on top of her.
Right.
And they'll have a lot more freedom, but yet we're still kind of keeping an eye on them, and they have to come to class here and there. Or it might be for a mom working on getting her kids back. And then we have a third house that's for a single mom, and her kids live in it. And we kind of call that the leadership home. So that's kind of narrowing it down to a lot of stuff that goes on. But it keeps us busy, so we love it, and we're thankful to have the opportunity. But our jail and prison ministry is something that really has grown over the last few years, and we've been blessed because it not only touches the lives of the incarcerated, but their families on the outside. And then when they get out, that we can keep plugging in with them, because we do offer a workforce development team that helps them do resumes, apply for jobs, provide clothes for them to go on those things, and just plugging into helping them connect with other. That's one thing I want to say too. We're from a great community that everybody works together, because we know it takes more than one organization to move people forward. So we partner a lot with resources and with each other to move people forward. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Awesome.
And one of those things is it goes to how they tie together. I've worked with guys at Morgan County that I later saw at Limestone Correctional,
Right.
or North Alabama Work Release, or Hamilton A&I.
Right.
So, and sometimes it goes the other way.
Right. Yes. When you look at the success of rehabilitation, whether that be on a state Department of Correction side or on a county jail side, those things you mentioned, the involvement of the inmate with the community or the community with the inmate, that it's not just, okay, you serve your time, now you're back out and you end up going right back to the same place you went
Right.
before, that there are people that there's those layers of accountability that are putting value. Hey, you're valuable enough to invest in,
Right.
demonstrate that value. You mentioned specifically of course, and again, the part that I had more direct contact with, the programs in the jail, and you said that 40 different classes and programs. And so, what kind of things are you offering at Morgan County? I know that's a question this wide, but what kind of things are you offering at Morgan County for these inmates participating in?
Of course, over time, we started off with a course called Jobs for Life, and that's what got us in the door in 2009. So we've been there since then. But now we have a wide variety of courses, and now as we became coordinators of the volunteers, right now before COVID, we actually had 38 classes a week at the jail. There were the other numbers we have, outside this particular
Sure.
jail. Well, that's ours. And then since COVID, we were 7 days a week. Well, we have 6 days a week now. On Saturdays, we have special events at times, but we don't have something that meets every Saturday.
Right.
And so you have that.
And one thing, when we're talking about everything we teach is faith-based. Now, it may be a Bible study, but then we offer Life Skills 101, and that's dealing
Sure.
with relationships, addictions, employment, education, just a lot of the issues they deal with parenting, a lot of rehab, relapse recovery programs.
Sure.
Anger management, we're about to start a class on that come next week. So we want to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, but we also know they lack so many skills, and a couple of new things that are going on. We've done trauma healing. We started doing some of the trauma healing because
Yes.
we realize the depth of the issues that maybe a lot of them have from the childhood up that
Sure.
they need to deal with. And we've started a new re-entry on the inside, because we do re-entry on the outside, but we wanted to figure out how to make that be helpful on the inside even before they get out, that you lay a more solid foundation for them.
Sure.
So that when they come out, they don't hop in the car with the wrong people.
Right.
And that's being developed. We've been doing it about a little over a year, a year and a half, and that we meet more with the judges and the lawyers and trying to lay out, because sometimes they sit there for a long time and only needed one piece of paper, and we can gather that kind of documentation up. And I will say this, we have a very small staff of 5, and so we rely so much on volunteers to get this accomplishment, and we're thankful for that. So Tim might have more to say.
I think when you had the training for the volunteers,
Yes.
and a lot of your officers were overwhelmed. They had no idea the number of folks. We
Yes.
filled the whole room up.
Yes.
So it's we're just so blessed to have that, and a wide range of skills. I have
Yes.
a pastor that literally grew up in Spain, teaches Spanish classes. The guy that helps him is has a PhD in chemistry. We've had another one, a PhD in psychology. Another one is a graduate of Yale School of Law. But then you have people that they really listen to are the ones that are ex-offenders that you
Sure.
bring in, that have said what they've said. And
Right.
so it's a wide range of people. People ask, what are you looking for? And first thing we say, you got to be real.
Absolutely.
Most of the guys and ladies in the jail have PhDs in con.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Yes.
So if you want to most of them can figure that out.
Right.
So, and it is sad that some people will hustle people with Jesus.
Sure.
And so just be real and don't get flustered and don't fall apart. And if one of the things I do, I look at the website. I see who is arrested and who gets out every day.
Yeah, we laugh at it because some of the inmates say Tim knows they came in before they know they came in.
And so one of the things, you can't be discouraged.
Sure.
So if you had somebody you worked with a bit and you see you get arrested again, here's what I do. I go look them up. And if they're coherent that day, they know what planet they're on.
Yes.
I don't tell them how badly they've done. They already know all that. I says, don't give up. And a lady one of the first people worked with in jail, her name was Joy Calley. And I know it wasn't original for her, but she's the first one that made an impression on me saying this. She says, still breathing, still hope.
Right.
So I tell them that, and I said, you need a Bible, you need a purpose-driven life, you ready for me to sign you up for classes, So no matter how many times they come in, I'm going to greet them the same way.
Sure. And in the years that that y'all have been involved in these inmates' lives, especially when you're talking about whether it be investing on that one-on-one, or whether it be in a group mentality with the classes. I know there's been some speculation I've heard sometimes from my staff members in the past, or that this is all just a big waste of time. We're just doing something to be doing something, or it's to make us feel better. Like, oh well, we're doing something. Have you seen an impact from what you're investing in the jail there at Morgan County?
There's two parts of it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you look at it. But one of the ways is when we were shut down in COVID, when it came out, some of those people that were skeptical hugged their necks when we came back in. They were glad to have us back. So that's hard. And then as far as individual successor, tell them a little bit about Amanda.
Yeah. One of the ladies that helps us volunteer now with the church she's part of, which is a very large church across the United States, actually. She's over in the incarceration and helps with that ministry. But she used to sit at Morgan County Jail years and years ago in my class. And she came to know the Lord in the class, had to go on and serve time in prison. And I just kind of lost touch with her after being there for a long time until she showed back up one day and thanked me for being in class and what we offered her. And then she had gotten out and got involved in this church and part of their incarceration ministry. So now she's back with us and her husband at Morgan County Jail. And they're there once a week doing a big church service on Sunday nights. And just seeing how God's made that impact and turned her life around, that she's pouring back into them. And I think about another young lady that I had in class for quite a while. She was there with drug charges, and that's all she's ever known since she was a child.
Yeah.
And when she got out, she came to our transitional home. She stayed with us about 18 months. She was one that sometimes the staff would say, can we just take her back to jail? Because she could be difficult at times.
Sure.
But you just keep pouring into them and loving them and holding them accountable. And there was a lady who wanted to help with Christmas one year, and she wanted to adopt somebody that we were involved with their child. And I said, well, I have a young lady in her class, and her daughter's not far from here, and she wants her to have Christmas. So I let that lady come in with me to meet this young lady. And they met, and the lady helped me teach, not long, maybe for about 4 months, because she was busy with her own job that she has. But afterwards, she got out. Her and her husband, who teaches for us as well at Morgan County Jail, they just took her under their wing like she was their own daughter. I mean, and they were strict with her. They were loving. They taught her from cooking to parenting because she didn't have custody of her child. And we had to go take her to Gunnersville to let her see her, and we have to have supervised, so one of us would go. And now that young lady, she's married. She's got joint custody with the other family with the daughter. She's now working for a secular nonprofit that's in mental health and pouring back in. And she's come in a couple of times to share her testimony in the jail. And it's just a beautiful thing. And when you're in the middle of it and you're serving, you don't know what the outcome is.
Sure.
And
Yes.
so the thing you have to remember is you plant seeds.
Right.
And sometimes you're having to do some watering, and you're having to do some weeding, but God brings the harvest.
Right.
And I know a man one time told us, he said, people ask him, what's your success rate? And he'd say 100%. If you want to know about the harvest, you got to talk to the Lord. and so, but it helps you remember that's not what we're doing. We're planting the seeds. We're giving them tools. We're sharing the love of Jesus.
Sure. Yes.
And then you never know sometimes how many falls a person has to have before it's that one that spins
Yes.
around. And if you just looked at it from day to day, those moving forward, you could get discouraged. But thankfully that God gives us those that we see who are doing well. But what is well? I mean, you could look at somebody who comes back in and go, well, they're much further along than they were the last time they
Yes.
came. So
Yes.
success is hard to define. Sometimes we want them to be from A to Z, and that doesn't always happen.
Right.
You know.
One of the things we learned going to national conferences and stuff and then experience over time, that some people, one of the things you can't do is make idols out of your success stories.
Sure.
And that puts too much pressure on them.
Sure.
And sometimes you get so excited, you put too much pressure and they fall under. One of the main things churches have to watch for is getting too high on them when they're doing good and bash them too much when they make a
When they
mistake.
fall, yes.
So those are things. Jump back to the young lady. Her husband also came through the jail and went through living free recovery thing here. Another ex-offender who's a success story, and went through his program and is doing fantastic. I've seen them as a couple. It just does your heart good.
And I fear, excuse me, of course, the whole point of this series that we're doing with the podcast is finding the positive in this environment, the corrections environment that tends to be produce so much negativity, produce so much cynicism. There's no point in the human race. We're all just, going to fall and be terrible and so on and so on. But the thing I find interesting is that how quickly people latch on to the negative, which that's human nature. But, oh, well, that inmate's back again. Good grief, they fell again. But how rarely, okay, they were in a hole this deep. They came back to jail. That's not great, but if the hole's only this deep this time, that's a success
Exactly.
in of itself. And that if the long-term effect of that, like with the child, this mother would, given the same track record, would never have had any meaningful interaction with her
Right,
child,
exactly.
regardless of her own personal experience, the mother's personal experience, and what happened with her. Well, now we've impacted a child's life because now she has her mama,
Right.
and the impact that has on her, and then multi-generational. So, it's easy to point out the negative.
Exactly.
But when you start digging at and looking at, okay, well, what is really positive here? There's a lot more
Right.
than there is often on the negative side, but we're not looking for it.
Right.
So to kind of bring this all back together as we finish up, as far as y'all's involvement in this ministry, what has been, and you can answer this together, you can do it individually, it makes no matter to me. What has been the most impacting part for you?
You want to go ahead?
Okay. Well, for me, I tell this to my volunteers when they come and say, "Hey, can we help in the jail? Can we serve? Can we teach something?"
Sure.
I also tell them, "I want you to know that God's going to do as much work in your life as He's doing in theirs, and you
Sure.
might not be ready for that."
Right.
Because sometimes the trauma class we go through, or you may be doing anger management, or may be dealing with sexual issue, whatever. I think people are blown away in a lot of ways how much we need it as much as they
Sure.
need it. So that's been a very positive thing. And the way we set up a lot of our classes, we try to sit around, I know on the women's side, we just a round table, just some women studying together, having a cup of coffee, and yes, we can bring food in and celebrate their
Right.
graduations of classes, and they get certificates. And you find out these people could be your friends on the outside sitting around the table,
Sure.
but based on circumstances, sure, there's people who just make wrong choices for making wrong choice, but a lot of people, what their past has brought them to, they maybe had no choices in some of the environment. And when you begin to see those lives changed, and you begin to see how much they hang on to everything you share with them and tell them, I'll never forget, years ago that impacted me so much. I was sitting there, we're teaching, and a young girl, and this is one thing we say too, the biggest thing that comes out of those classes is hope. We're giving people hope. Them hope and us too.
Yes.
You know, they cry with us when we're struggling with things as well as others. She looked at me and said, I want to believe you, Miss Bolden. I want to believe you're telling me the truth, but so many people have let me down. And if I were to believe this and it isn't true and you let me down, I don't think I could handle it this time. And that radically changed my thought and what I say to them,
Sure.
how I love them when I say, you can come see us when you get out.
Right.
Yeah, you can come see us.
Right.
We'll
I mean
there.
that, yes.
So I think the biggest impact is just loving seeing how lives are changed. It's like you said, Tim's always sharing with them small victories. You're just looking for small victories. And we often miss those little small victories you see
Sure.
changing. They may be coming to class just to get some food or certificate at the end, and then you realize, wow, they've really grown and grabbed hold of this. And to hear them say, God set me down in here to save my life.
Right.
Or you have somebody say, can you go to the judge and tell them, don't let me out because I'm going to mess up until I can go somewhere. Tell them not to let me out.
Right.
That's very impactful and powerful what God's doing as
Sure.
we're just choosing to let him use us as seeds to love on people and share the word, share skills that'll help them improve, and watch that domino effect like you're talking about. It's a domino effect not just in their life but the people around them.
Yes.
And our community as well. Benefits the community.
Yes.
And they can work and be helpful in, putting together a family and impacting it. So I think just watching, really, the most impactful thing is watching God do his thing that you couldn't have written in a movie to try to make it
Right,
work,
yes.
or connect dots. And you can't pick and choose who you think is going to make it because you don't have any clue.
That's
just
right.
do what you're called to do, and that's just plant seeds and love on people and bring the truth and be real with them. For me, that's been...
And a lot of our volunteers, but one of the things our Spanish pastor does the best job of communicating with them when they get out. And he communicates with family in other countries and, those kinds of things. Probably at least 5 different countries because they're from,
Right.
And he speaks the language.
Yes.
I don't speak any Spanish.
Right.
And so one of the ones that was fun to me was before we recruited this pastor, there was a guy who we didn't have many bilingual guys that would take classes. And a young man named Jorge came through, and you'll remember him. And he loved that. And he became a Christian. And he would ask me, he says, can you get a Spanish purpose-driven life? I said, sure. Or life-saving choice. So he'd ask me for several of that. And there was a pastor, a local guy who would come in on Sundays that taught the worship service in Spanish. There wasn't a big group of them, but so he would keep asking me for things. So sometimes the Lord just kind of has to shake you to get your attention. So this one time he says, I need 5 Spanish purpose-driven lives. And I said, Jorge, obviously the Lord wants a Spanish purpose-driven life taught here. And obviously I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
I said, you give me the guys you want in your class. I'll get them approved by the warden. I'll go round them up like I do. But when we get in here, brother, you got to teach because I don't speak Spanish. And it started a class that's still going today.
Yes.
And then we encountered this pastor who came in while he was still here and still talks to him in prison.
Well, one of the things I think is awesome about that is, so often we think of the inmates, the one standing here in front of me, and you think about the children often, but what this inmate being here is indicative of on the family level, that engaging with that, it gives me a better understanding of the inmate and what's going on. I can't tell how many times I've talked to an inmate and, that we've dealt with, that we're fighting with, we're struggling with, and mama calls to check on her son or her daughter or whatever, and you talk to mama, and now you have a better understanding, sometimes negative, sometimes positive, of how to connect with this individual just for the fact that you were connected with the family. So awesome. Well, good. Well, we need to wrap this up. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to sit down and do this. And guys, I hope, as I said many times, that you take what we've discussed here, you find not just the positive here in Decatur and Morgan County, but that you find these things in your agency. You find these things in the area in which you're at. Take that, be encouraged with it, and maybe, hopefully, you can get involved in some of it yourself. But until the next time, as always, guys, stay sharp, stay safe, stay vigilant. Godspeed.